All right then, good afternoon, everyone. Today is November 6th, 2020. This is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority being held in Albany and also remotely. The members in attendance, we have Chairman Bradley in the Albany offices. We have participating by video, Commissioners Fan and Commissioners Ford. Staff in attendance, we have General Counsel Meyerhoff by video and myself, Secretary Donahue, at the Albany office. We have 3 items on today's calendar. They're all requests from Counsel's office for emergency orders of summary suspension. The first item is 1559V. It's King's CR 1327880. The licensee is 23 Meadow LLC. Margarita, you're muted.
Sorry, 2 weeks in a row I did that. I'm sorry, members. Margarita Marsico on behalf of Counsel's office. I'm requesting that the members issue an order of summary suspension as to 23 Meadow LLC, operating out of 23 Meadow Street in Brooklyn, New York. The facts as reported to me by Sergeant LeBlond of the New York City Sheriff's Office are that the sergeant was surveilling this premise on Halloween, starting at approximately midnight. Over the course of the next approximate hour and a half, he observed approximately 150 people entering this address while wearing Halloween costumes. He saw a man looking like he was a security guard guiding the people in quickly, ushering them in. I asked him if he saw them lining up. He said, no, it looked like they were almost being ushered in, and the particulars of getting them checked in would inside the door to avoid, being outside too much. At approximately 1 a.m, the sergeant approached the door. He saw that the door was open. At the same time, he observed a female security guard. She looked like a security guard because she was wearing a jacket and she was not in a costume. He observed her walking toward the door in an effort to close the door. He blocked her. He showed her his shield as he was in plain clothes. She attempted to walk out and pretend that she had no affiliation with the place. He asked her to stop. She immediately called out over her radio, police, 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 in an obvious attempt to warn others that the authorities were in the building. She then obstructed governmental administration by attempting to block his path, by resisting arrest. He was forced to call for backup. He said that, she froze up. She wouldn't allow herself to be arrested. So that took some doing in terms of getting that situation calmed down. Eventually, the team was able to enter the main room. They observed, as you could see from the photographs, there was a party going on. The sergeant said he had the impression that the band had the DJ had just taken a break, because he said that while he was on surveillance, the bass music was so loud that his car was shaking with his windows up. So it was very, very loud music. Well, by the time they got in, the music had stopped. We don't know if it was because they were warned or because they were taking a break. He saw all the patrons standing around, drinking. He didn't see anyone eat. He observed 2 stand-up bars inside. And then there was an adjoining outdoor area where he saw another stand-up bar there drinking. He was able to identify, people who he thought were affiliated with the party. Someone named Steven Gonzalez said he was a DJ. Someone named Alexander said he was a sound engineer, and various others who were, either bartenders or playing the role of security guards or, other people in charge of the premise were identified, separated, and they were ultimately issued summonses. No one came forward and identified themselves as a manager or as Mr. Chip Sue. When Mr. Chip Sue was granted this license, he said either he would be present managing the premise because his partner, Mr. Siegel, who only owns 20% of this LLC, was not going to be managing. So it was either going to be Chip Sue or he was going to have a manager present. And neither of them came forward to identify themselves for this party. The sheriff's office said that they were there until 3:45 in the morning, getting the situation under control. They emptied the premise. They counted 387 people as they left. The legal occupancy during COVID under the executive order would be 242, as that is the 25% of the legal occupancy, which is 900 something, but I know for a fact that 25% is 242. So they were in excess of the allowable occupancy. So clearly no one is supervising this premise. If you see in the method of operation, the licensee indicated he was going to have a very professional security guard company helping to supervise this. This female security guard who was not a licensed security guard. So this is the caliber of security guards that they had supervising these 387 people. And whoever was there, if the licensee was in fact there, he refused to come forward, and no manager, acknowledged having had anything to do with this this party. So after this incident, Investigator Stravalli did do some further investigation. He reached out to Mr. Sue and had a conversation with Mr. Sue. Mr. Sue claimed that it was his birthday on October 31st and that he was not present at the premise and that he was behind in his rent, and he basically allowed his landlord the use of the premise to do whatever he wanted. He acknowledged that most of the employees who were there were in fact affiliated with Mr. Sue. They had worked at his other licensed premise, and he knew them from, I guess, other events he'd held. The interesting thing is that this party usually involved with, but in this case, he claims that it was not him, it was the landlord who was doing this. He's provided certain photographs to the investigator trying to show that there were in fact some tables and chairs set up. It's not clear when these photographs were taken. These photographs were clearly not taken on the night of the incident. At the very best, in his defense, even if he were to claim that he's still legally responsible as the owner of this license for anything that happens there. He can't just stick his head in the sand, have his own birthday party wherever he is, and just pretend that this party is not happening. But, this is a serious, obviously the members understand how serious this is. There's a lot of people packed into an enclosed space. And clearly Mr. Sue was not adequately supervising. So, and the other interesting thing is that this license had just been granted on October 28th. And then this is when this party was happening. This premise had been unlicensed for I think a fairly long period of time. I believe we'd been granted special event permits for this premise, but Mr. Sue went ahead and applied for an OP license, and he got his OP license on October 28th. So Mr. Sue's responsible for whatever happened there on October 31st. So for these reasons, we're requesting that you issue an order of summary suspension.
Thank you, Margarita. Just for the record, the pure head count of 25%, that really applies if you're actually having dinner and then people are sitting down to eat. Then you need to be, if you're going to operate legally in this environment in New York City, it's not just about 25%. It's about everybody sitting down and having dinner and drinking with dinner. There's nothing like that going on here. This is a nightclub scene. People standing, nobody's sitting down to eat. DJ playing, people up and dancing. And it's also a violation of the 50-person event limit. This was obviously a Halloween party, not a dining event where people were just arriving occasionally to eat and then leave. We should be charging them for having an event in excess of 50 people, and for other executive order violations associated with illegal inside service. as well as whatever else was found. Thanks.
All right, I'll just note for the record that Deputy Commissioner Roberts has joined us by telephone.
I have, thanks, Tom.
All right, with that, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions? You're muted there. There we go.
Margarita, I just want to clarify again. So this is a catering license or is it an OP?
It's an OP, but they indicated they would be catering, I think, 20 to 30 times a year.
Well,
Okay.
your agenda sheet says a CR. What's that?
CR is a cabaret license. That's the on-premises license for a tavern, lounge, et cetera, that has a capacity of more than 600 people.
Okay.
Commissioner Fan, any other questions?
No, that's the question. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, any questions?
I was going to ask you about their adverse history, but I guess they don't have any.
Yeah, and the licensee does have another license, and that one doesn't have any adverse history either.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
Yes, just so the record's clear and for people that don't get an opportunity to see the pictures, there was no setup in this entire place for people that have a dining experience. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman, there's no setup that the sheriff's office told me about. Everybody was standing everywhere. And in this conversation that the licensee principal had with Investigator Cervalli, he kept insisting that there were tables and chairs. And,
I mean,
I think the investigator indicated,
the pictures make it clear that this is a complete nightclub scene.
yes, Chairman.
Okay, that's all.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the full board. Excuse me, Commissioner Fan, your vote?
Based on the evidence submitted by Council Marsico and the pictures that were referred to by Chairman, it's clear that this location is an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and I vote to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
I vote to summarily suspend this license for the same reasons.
And Chairman Bradley.
Yeah, I vote to summarily suspend this license. It's odd. This is the exact type of event these executive orders were put in place to avoid people shoulder to shoulder inside a nightclub dancing in the middle of a pandemic. It's clear that this is a risk to public health, safety, and welfare, and I vote to summarily suspend.
All right, the next item I have is 1559W, Bronx OP 1260975. It's Luke's Lounge, Inc.
Afternoon, members. This is Kayla O'Donnell on behalf of Council's office. Council's office is seeking an emergency summary order suspension for a licensee who's shown a complete and total disregard of not just the governor's executive orders, but of any law, administrative, criminal, or otherwise. By way of history, this license was summarily suspended on April 1st of this year after 17 people were found drinking inside the premises on March 22nd of this year, just 5 days after the shutdown of all non-essential businesses in New York State. The licensee's conditional no contest plea was rejected by the full board, who countered with revocation. The licensee's attorney requested reconsideration. The reconsideration is in the record before you, and in part states, they are fully aware that if you accept this offer, moving forward, they will be held to a microscopic level of scrutiny by the authority, and any deviation from compliance would almost certainly result in a prompt revocation process. They're willing to stipulate to this in their plea if you so desire. Based in part on these representations, the request for reconsideration was granted, and a $35,000 civil penalty was imposed and paid by the licensee. That brings us to today. Last night, SLA investigator Cervalli went to licensed premises. Upon arrival, they found an illegal, unapproved, fully enclosed wooden sidewalk cafe. There are numerous photos in the record before you of this structure. The existence of this structure is especially concerning because in the prior case that resulted in the summary suspension, the licensee was charged for the same structure. In an email sent with the CNC for that case, the licensee's attorney indicated that there were photos attached reflecting that the removal of the offensive temporary structure. Given that this illegal structure was found in the same place 7 months later, it was either not really removed or it was only temporarily removed and then was rebuilt. Either way, the licensee has shown a clear, blatant, and total disregard for the ABC law and numerous New York City codes and regulations which make this dangerous structure entirely illegal. Going back again to last night, upon arrival, after noticing the illegal structure, Investigator Cervalli found that the visibility inside the premises was obstructed by tinted glass in violation of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Law. Investigator Cervalli went inside, and as depicted in the photos in the record before you, he found a bartender not wearing a face covering, which is required by Executive Order 202.16. Investigator Cervalli observed and photographed this unmasked bartender giving a black plastic bag to a male patron. As the photos in the record before you depict, he also observed a large canvas bag full of untaxed cigarettes on the floor behind the bar. The detective who was waiting outside stopped the patron who admitted to buying untaxed cigarettes from the bartender. There's a photo in the record before you which shows 3 cartons of cigarettes that were not from New York, as they have other states' tax stamps on them. Investigator Cervalli also found 2 open Coronas in a refrigerator with lime slices stuck in the neck of the bottle. He found one male hiding in the bathroom and another male that alerted the bartender that police were outside. Investigator Cervalli advised me that he believes that those 2 Coronas belonged to those 2 patrons. Additionally, there was an individual sitting at a table inside the premises with 2 beverages on it. There were no food receipts available, there was no New York City Department of Health permit to sell food, and there was no kitchen. The only food found inside the premises were sealed commercial deli meats and cheeses, which were inside the refrigerator. It is clear that the licensee was in violation of Executive Order 202.52 by serving alcoholic beverages without requiring the purchase of food. Additionally, the licensee is being charged with failing to conform to the application because as reflected in the method of operation, establishment questionnaire, and diagram before you, it indicated there would be a kitchen with a grill and a stove. However, no such kitchen was found during the inspection. During the inspection, the bartender called a man who arrived at the premises during the inspection and claimed to be the owner. Notably, the only principal on this license is a woman. The man indicated that his girlfriend of over 20 years is the owner on paper. Given this admission, the licensee was charged with availing. As also depicted in the photos before you, a gambling device was found in the storage room. The individual who identified himself as the owner also admitted that people play cards in the storage room. He also acknowledged that there were New York City Department of Transportation permits behind the bar, and as depicted in the photos, the 17 parking permits found behind the bar were forgeries, as they all had the same permit number. Also behind the bar were 2 illegal weapons, a baton and brass knuckles. The bartender was arrested for untaxed cigarettes, gambling device, forgery, and criminal possession of a weapon. The availee was arrested for the gambling device, forgery, and criminal possession of a weapon. Finally, there were numerous other violations found, including a blocked emergency exit, a defective emergency exit sign, extension cords being used as permanent wiring, and books and records due to the absence of beer liquor receipts and W-4 employee withholding forms. Given the foregoing, the licensee is also being charged with failing to properly supervise the licensed premises. The licensee's extensive, egregious violations and total disregard of not only the executive orders, but apparently any other law, alone warrants the summary suspension of this license. What makes this case even more appalling is that this license was not only just summarily suspended 7 months ago, but that the licensee begged for the license back, claimed remorse, and indicated that they understood that any deviation from compliance would almost certainly result in a prompt revocation process, yet here they are committing numerous, very serious violations and even repeating violations from the prior case. This licensee obviously cannot be trusted to follow any law regardless of the consequence. As such, continuing the licensee to operate while the charges are litigated would endanger the health, welfare, and safety of the patrons, employees, their families, and the community as a whole. In consideration of them, immediate action in the form of an emergency order of summary suspension is required. Thank you.
Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
Does the licensee have any other licenses?
I'd have to double check that.
Okay.
All right,
And what date was it previously suspended?
The date of the suspension was April 1st.
Okay. And you mentioned that the attorney sent in pictures. I kind of recalled the reference to pictures, but I don't remember seeing the pictures. Do you actually have the pictures?
The photographs that we have in our database are not great. They're black and white, but I can get the original photos for you.
Okay. So there was a submission that came with the letter in theory.
Yeah, so when he submitted
Okay.
the CNC, he submitted supplemental materials to the full board, and that included another email with the attached photos.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's not entirely clear whether this is the same or a different version or something new from what the prior structure was. This one looks like it's wooden and has, built-in heating, some kinds of heaters or something like that. So it's not entirely clear.
That is the same structure, right? Yeah, this one actually, yeah, it looks more sophisticated. It looks like there's an entrance to it, but I can't remember, so.
Right.
Okay.
I guess the point, one of the points here is, having already been charged with and aware of the fact that it had to remove an illegal structure once, they went ahead and built another one. On top of all the other things that were going on in this location. Also, I'm sorry, I was distracted for a moment. I'm not sure if Kayla noted that in the course of being confronted, the person who was running the place mentioned that it was licensed in the name of his girlfriend.
Right, yes.
I mean, that suggests that she may not even be the real operator of this location, even though she is the one who appeared to be involved in the communications that led to the reconsideration request. That's
Right,
another
yes.
complicating factor here.
Right. Thank you.
all right, Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
Yes, Kayla, when was this place licensed?
March 16th, 2012.
Thank you.
Chairman Bradley, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
All right, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by Kayla, it's clear that this location is an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and I vote to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford.
Based on evidence presented by council, it's pretty clear that this place is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare. And for the second time this year, I vote to summarily suspend this license.
Chairman Bradley.
It's clear that this licensee remains a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare. In fact, it appears it got worse, not better. Based on the submissions as well as the presentation by council, I'm voting to summarily suspend.
All right, then, before we move to the next item, just want to remind everybody, when the prosecutor is making his or her presentation, if you could all mute your lines, because otherwise your videos are popping up on the screen if there's any background noise. All right, with that, the next item, 1559X, it's Suffolk CL 1045494. The licensee is North Fork Country Club.
Good morning, Jamie Gallagher, appearing on behalf of Council's office for this proceeding. North Fork Country Club, which is a club licensee, CL, in Long Island. On October 17th of 2020, a wedding was held at the licensed premises. the event was held for 113 people. Department of Health documents that we received today indicate that the Department of Health interviewed witnesses and the general manager. And according to the general manager, the wedding ceremony was held outdoors, and the reception was held indoors in 3 separate rooms. Department of Health was not on scene for the event, but we do have admissions with respect to the number of people in attendance. But the number of people who were contracted for was 113. Licensees Council admits that 91 attended the event. The general manager says it was 113 people in attendance. In any event, it was over 50 people for a non-essential gathering. So that is a violation of Executive Order 20245. As a result of this event, multiple people have tested positive for COVID-19. This was a super spreader event. We have at least 3 staff from the premises positive, including a bartender and 2 servers. One of the vendors from the wedding tested positive. At least 30 guests, possibly more, tested positive. This has had a widespread impact on the community. There are several schools that had to close down on more than one day because some of the individuals who tested positive as a result of this wedding were students at those schools. There are 159 people who were put into quarantine as a result of this event. The premises actually closed for 14 days because of the staff's COVID exposure. It is reopened at this time. The fire department had to change their operations because a member of the fire department attended the wedding, tested positive, and attended a meeting with the other members of the fire department. So, you know, just more and more and more fallout from this event. It's not plausible at this point in time that the licensee would be unaware of the 50-person limit on these events. These executive orders have impacted their business for 7 months plus at this point, and they have to know about this. The decision to allow an event with 113 guests can only be seen as an indication that the licensee cannot be trusted to follow the law when life and health is at stake. And in this case, it turned out to actually have caused the damage that the executive orders are designed to avoid. Now, the health department was not in attendance at this wedding. We do have an admission that patrons were dancing. So there is a violation of the guidance with respect to that and Executive Order 20241. So that has also been charged. Based on the amount of spread here, it is clear that the guests must have been mingling with each other inside the establishment during this reception. This premises has demonstrated a lack of regard for the executive order, limiting these events to 50 people, and they can't be trusted going forward, and council's office is requesting an immediate summary order of suspension to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public moving forward.
Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
Yes, Jamie, when were they licensed?
So the record in CNG was over 1,000 pages. I could not find the original licensure date, but I would say prior to 1990. They've had a license for a very long time.
Thank you.
It was not in our workflow records.
Okay.
Commissioner Ford, Chairman Bradley, then, do you have any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Given the super spreader event that's well documented in the press, it's clear that this location is an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare. And based on council's presentation, I vote to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on evidence presented by council, I think it's clear that this licensee was not paying attention. Had his eye off the ball here. So I vote to summarily suspend.
Chairman Bradley. All right, Chair, are you muted there, Chairman Bradley?
Yeah, sorry about that. I agree with council's argument here. I find it impossible to believe that this establishment was not aware of what the limits were, and the notes that have been provided in the submission indicate that there was dancing, and they clearly were mingling in the reception. I mean, this was just completely irresponsible by the licensee, and it's clear that they are a risk to the public health, safety, and welfare by the fact that many of their guests have now contracted COVID-19. So I vote to summarily suspend.
Chairman Bradley, I have nothing else on the calendar. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, thank you. Have a good weekend.
All right, with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go ahead and turn it off, Chairman. There we go.